What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. Yet again, this is one that was brought to us courtesy of Screaming Toilet. Fun site, lots of cool reviews, podcasts, articles, and videos featuring all of us. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a fun site. So today I am reviewing Chemicide's new album, Inequality. This came out on PRC Music on October 11th. They are a thrash band based out of Costa Rica. They formed in 2008, pretty much from the ashes of another band called Conqueror, which was around from 2006 to 2008, then the name change. And this is their third full length. So the album opens up with the title track, starts off with some police band samples over some kind of sampled keyboard bits, almost kind of an industrial feel to it. And then it gets into the song, which instantly sounds like Slayer, Exodus, all that fun, fast, kind of Bay Area thrash stuff. Guitars have a nice, good kind of 80s thrash tone, like kind of mid-80s sound. Could have been brought up a little bit more in the mix because they kind of get drowned out in some spots. Drums sound fantastic on this. I love the overall sound, and the bass is audible. Vocals right away kind of remind me of a mix between Millie Petrosa and Tom Araya, so this guy has a good thrash bark to him. Now this song pretty much races through. It's under 3 minutes. There's a cool bridge where the solo comes on, and it kind of gets into this almost old school Metallica gallop. Definitely something like around Kill 'Em All era, and it's definitely a good throwback feel right away. Now the next song, Indoctrination, has a really cool, almost Slayer-ish harmony in it, like something very South of Heaven-ish. And it's notably more groovy, so this is a nice little change of pace track. It stays in a nice, pretty much mid-tempo groove. Lots of palm muted chugs, of course, because that's something in thrash we all love. But it doesn't really break out into the fast gallop until it hits the chorus parts. Now this is the point where I noticed something kind of cool about this band. The frontman has a really good, straightforward thrash scream / bark yell. But the backup vocalist who comes in has a death metal roar, so they kind of pair this together, and these backup vocals really actually stand out. They're not just like these little gang shouts or anything like that. They don't necessarily blend in, and I kind of like that because you hear this cool contrast in it, and they're both really good. Now the backup vocals are used very sparingly, but when they're used, they are very effective. Style-wise, while these guys definitely play close to their old school influences, I'd say they're kind of comparable to a more modern thrash metal band like Havoc. Albeit not as technical, they're very straightforward. Actually kind of comparable to a band like Warbringer too. Alter Reality was another one I really liked on here. This one showed off a little bit heavier style on this. Definitely more focused on like Possessed. It's way more machine gun guitars and almost kind of death metal riffing. Kind of that precursor to death metal. This song is very high energy, very fast. Gets to a nice, pretty much chug-a-thon, as I would call it. There's even a nice little thrashy breakdown in there, and a cool little solo too. The solos are decent. I wouldn't say they're necessarily remarkable, but they definitely do serve the song. They just sort of play a really cool melody on top of the main riff, and some shreddy bits on top of that too, which are pretty cool. They're not ones you're like, oh my god, they're going to jump out at you all the time, but they do check all the boxes for a solid thrash solo. Now, probably my favorite track on here is Conditioned Liberty. I love the way this song opens. It's very punkish, but it doesn't scream crossover thrash. It still stays very much in that vein of like Slayer and Exodus and such. Now, there's a really cool medley that happens before the vocals even kick in. They definitely shift around and kind of build around these thrashy little bits here. And I really dug how this intro of the song was constructed, and then it just goes full bore into machine gun guitars, nasty, harsh vocals, and pretty much all the hallmarks of a good thrash song. Musically, I'd say this song was very close to something off of Sepultura's Beneath the Remains, and there's definitely a lot of Sepultura nods on here. There are definitely parts in it that scream, the interesting melodies that Andreas would put over songs on, especially Arise. Really, really solid writing on this. Overload was a fun one too. It's a very short song. In fact, it's one of the shortest ones on here. It is just a straightforward barn burner from start to stop. Definitely reminded me of a band like Nuclear Assault in terms of just the pure speed and aggression and attitude they brought. But this also brought up my first issue with the album, was this song just abruptly stops. And much like another album I reviewed, it felt like the song kind of just quit on you. I didn't necessarily need it to be a longer song at all. I just needed it to end a little bit better. It just pretty much stops. It feels like it could have kept going, or it could have ended in a little bit of more epic way, or just more impactful way, more memorable. And it kind of just drove me nuts that it just quit. Now I have the same issue with the next track, Paralysis. Granted, it's a really cool instrumental, and it definitely shows off more of their songwriting flair. There's really cool groovy sections, breakdowns, some more notable lead work in it. And I like how the song shifts around in terms of like lots of different feels in it. But again, it just sort of ends very lackluster. And you felt that it was building to this grand crescendo, this huge ending, and then it just stops. I don't know if they ran out of ideas there, but it was kind of a letdown because you were really building towards something there. Now, the last two tracks in here are definitely a little bit on the heavier side, which I was kind of surprised. As this album goes on, it gets a bit heavier. There's a little bit of that almost early death metal, death thrash sound in there, and a lot of the punk influences seem to be tossed aside in favor of much heavier, chuggier riffs. Rebellion Manifesto was probably, I thought, one of the heaviest tracks on here, and this one actually had quite possibly the best solo on here. It was notably longer, and it definitely shifted around. There was a lot of tasteful licks in there, a lot of memorable parts, but again, it kind of ended weird. It just sort of fade out, and then all of a sudden you're greeted to this backwards track that abruptly speeds up into a bunch of distortion and weirdness, and it kind of made me wonder why that was there. It didn't necessarily need to be there, it really didn't add anything to it. It was just kind of tacked on. Now you're greeted to a fun cover at the end on the bonus edition, which is a cover of the Misfits' Bullet, which they did a really solid job. It's a very thrashy rendition of the Misfits song originally. The frontman doesn't try to go over the top and try to sound like Glenn Danzig. He just delivers it with a nice hostile bark, and it really works. So overall, I'm going to give this album 3 stars. I really like it for the most part. I thought the production was really good for the most part. I think they could have brought up the guitars just a bit. When it came down to trying to end the songs, some of these really kind of fell off. There are other ones that ended perfectly fine. They really capped off the song well. And they do play close to their influences, but they execute, and I think that's what really mattered here for me. I definitely want to check out some of their early releases just to see what they sound like before this album, but I'm reasonably sure it's going to be thrash as hell. So, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.